Everyone, and welcome to the Virginia Cooperative Extension Plant Clinic. These plant clinics are sponsored by Virginia Cooperative Extension Program of Virginia's two land-grant universities, Virginia Tech and Virginia State University. Staffing our plant clinics are Master Gardeners from two organizations, the Fairfax County Master Gardeners and Green Spring Master Gardeners. Master Gardeners share science-based information about gardening on horticultural topics. Hello, everyone. My name is Ann Mason, and I will be your moderator for today's activity. I am joined by Fairfax County Extension Master Gardeners, Nancy Miller, Catherine McCauley, and Amanda Jackson. Let's turn to another seasonal topic of leaves. Leaves, and more leaves. We are about to go into that season where we have more leaves, and the fundamental question, do we leave them or do we pick them up? So over to you.
All right, there we go. Helps to off mute. Thank you, Anne. That is the big question, to rake or not to rake. And I think what I'll just try and do in this short presentation is give a few different approaches, and certainly that these are just big strokes, but it can give a general idea of what you can and cannot do. So if we could, next slide. The obvious benefits of fall raking are, at our age anyway, it's great exercise, and the lawn looks beautiful, and kids and animals love it. So who can find anything wrong with that aspect of fall? Next slide. The downside is that if too much of a good thing can actually work against you. So if there are too many leaves, they can smother the grass, prevent the sunlight from reaching the plants, and stopping photosynthesis, which all the plants need for growth. And a thick blanket of leaves can also prevent access to air and water and weakening a plant's root system. I think particularly affected are grasses like Kentucky bluegrass, and they are the ones that are most active during moderate to cool temperatures. Next slide, please. Some of the diseases that can be caused by leaf litter are shown right here. On the left is brown patch. That's a fungal disease. And you can identify it by the large yellow and brown spots, dead-looking grass. And these, again, they thrive in winter when the weather is cooling off. And to the right is snow mold, which you'll see under the snow in late winter, but it's still a fungus. It's a cold weather fungus. It affects cool season grasses primarily. And after the snow melts, that's when the spores become active and start doing their damage. So again, these are the two aspects that that you might have if you cover your lawn, prevent air circulation, movement, all of those things. We all know that's a medium for fungus. Next, please. Benefits of not raking. The obvious, just easy on the back comes to mind. But I think what's most important is that not raking keeps it out of the landfills. And I found an interesting statistic by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and you can see it here. It was pretty shocking to me how much solid waste we have, and leaves and yard debris comprise that. So that's a good benefit of not raking. And again, on the other side, if you have not too deep a layer of leaves, that can actually act as sort of a medium through which water and nutrients can seep down, retain that moisture, and in so doing, you can also return nutrients to the soil. So it's a bit of a soil booster in that regard. But on these elements, it's I think a matter of balance. Too much is not good. Too little might not be so great. But somewhere in between, in my opinion, might be a good way to go. Next slide. Again, not raking can create natural habitats for all the reasons here. It creates habitats for worms, snails, centipedes, spiders, and all sorts of little microscopic animals. It attracts insects, fungi, and bacteria. Birds and insects depend on the fallen debris and the leaves. Next. If whether you rake or whether you leave, what you can do is always manage your leaves. One way to do that is, again, rake and remove. You can collect and compost, or you can mulch. And just to describe those a little bit, in the rake and remove, it's obvious. You can rake them up, collect them, but I would check with the municipal people to see how to see if they have any recycling programs, because sometimes they will collect organic matter and keep it out of the landfills. So that's one thing to do. And then the second one is collect and compost. So you might want to rake your leaves and turn them into compost. And some of the ways you can do this are by building a wooden or wire enclosure, by a mounted rotating composter, or simply create a compost pile. And this one that I pictured is a very, very simple one that the Fairfax Council had come up with. I think that's pretty user-friendly. I think also I wanted to mention, Anne had mentioned this, whenever you're composting or whatever you're doing, be sure never to compost diseased plants, because then you're just spreading around the disease. So you do want to keep an eye out in your leaf management program for those diseased leaves. Next. And these are just the sources and references that might benefit somebody who's interested in pursuing some of these options for leaf management. That's it.
Thank you, Catherine.
Sure.
Do we have any questions for Catherine?
No questions.
Thank you, Amanda. I think one of the things that we've often heard is that taking leaves and putting them into your landscape beds, these are the beds where you grow your plants, can really save your amount of mulch that you would otherwise buy. But one of the things that's really important is that you shred the leaves in some way. Most people use a lawnmower to just go over the leaves and collect them, and then use that smaller litter as mulch for their landscaping beds. For the natural habitats, some of us live on the edge of forests or have a lot of trees. What I've heard, Catherine, maybe you can comment on this. What I've heard is that just leaving those leaves in place mimics the forest, and that's a good practice, that you don't have to clean out the beds around your big trees, that leaving your leaves to naturally decay is a good practice.
It very much is in many regards, and that's, as you say, that's how forests thrive and survive, is because that decomposing leaf litter is really what restores the nutrients to the soil. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned it. I think I skipped over it. Mulching, it's what I do every year. I have a special little mulch lawnmower, and I just mow my lawn, and then it scatters into tiny little pieces. And it provides, a return to the earth without having that deep, deep layer, which some people, again, find unattractive, and it can create a barrier to air circulation and moisture and what have you. But that's I think what's interesting to me about raking fall leaves is, how do you make it work for you? Do you want to mow? Do you want to rake some of the yard, all of the yard? Do you want to leave some for the natural, habitats and that function? And I think that's what makes it interesting, is what can you live with? And it's always a balance, like everything else in gardening. It's how do we do it? for aesthetic appearances and for nutrient value and for wildlife.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Nancy. And just to remind all of our readers, our listeners, and our watchers that we in the Fairfax County Master Gardeners have a variety of really valuable resources, including our website, fairfaxgardening.org, and all of our virtual plant clinics are put on to the VCE-Fairfax YouTube page.